Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, the ache doesn't stop? Like happiness is always just out of reach? Fleeting? Fragile? Always followed by fear? What if the problem isn't you, but the way we understand life itself? We live in pursuit. More love, more money, more meaning. We chase peak moments, then mourn when they pass. But beneath all this striving, there's a quiet panic. A gnawing hunger that never truly goes away. Pleasure fades. Joy crumbles into longing. Even peace once found begins to slip through our fingers. Why is it that what we desire most never seems to last? This isn't a modern dilemma, it's ancient. 2,500 years ago, under a tree in northern India, a man sat in stillness. He had walked away from everything, his wealth, his kingdom, his family, not out of despair, but out of inquiry, because he was haunted by one question. Why do we suffer? And can we ever be free? His name was Siddhartha Gautama. History remembers him as the Buddha. The Buddha began not with revelation, but with radical honesty. Life, he said, is filled with dukkha. It's often translated as suffering, but the word holds a deeper meaning. An existential unease. The discomfort of being alive in a world that is constantly shifting. The quiet discontent that underlies even our happiest moments. We suffer because we cling to desires, to identities, to illusions of control. We grasp at things as if they will save us. Our job, our youth, our relationships, our beliefs. But everything we cling to is impermanent. Everything changes. Everything passes. And when we resist this truth, when we pretend that life is stable, we suffer. This wasn't pessimism, it was diagnosis. A mirror held up to the human condition. And like any wise physician, the Buddha didn't just name the wound, he offered a cure. What is nirvana? The word means blowing out, as in extinguishing a flame. But it's not about death, it's about liberation. What burns away in nirvana is not the self, but illusion. What ends is not your life, but your craving for it to be other than it is. Imagine this. You're no longer pulled by desire, no longer pushed by fear. Your mind becomes still, not numb, but lucid. You no longer grasp at each passing moment, and because you no longer grasped, you are no longer trapped. Nirvana isn't a place, it's a shift in perception, the annihilation of being, but the deep, quiet realization that there is nothing to cling to, and nothing that needs to be clung to. It is the end of chasing, and the beginning of freedom. But what does that feel like? It's terrifying and liberating. It's the ego, it feels like death. To the soul, it feels like truth. This pursuit of truth wasn't born only in the East. In the streets of ancient Athens, another figure was stirring minds awake. His name was Socrates. He too renounced comfort, not to escape, but to inquire. Not into suffering, but into ignorance. Socrates believed that most people sleepwalk through life. They live by unexamined beliefs, confuse opinion with wisdom, and habit with truth. To him, the tragedy wasn't pain, but the life lived without reflection. And so, he questioned everything. What is justice? What is virtue? What does it mean to know? To Socrates, the greatest danger wasn't poverty or illness. It was the unexamined life. And here, two paths meet. Where the Buddha taught us to still the mind, Socrates taught us to sharpen it. Where one peeled away craving, the other peeled away delusion. Both sought liberation. Not through comfort, but through clarity. Not by adding more, but by stripping away what is false. What do modern scientists say? Today, neuroscience confirms what these ancient seekers intuited. Craving, aversion, attachment, they activate the same brain systems as physical pain. In other words, the mind suffers just like the body. But here's the hope. The brain is plastic. It can be rewired. And that rewiring begins with awareness, with mindfulness, with a deliberate practice of letting go. Monks didn't just sit in caves for silence. They were training their minds like scientists. And today, studies show, mindfulness reduces anxiety. It lowers emotional reactivity, strengthens attention, empathy, and well-being. Even in therapy, healing begins when we stop running from discomfort and learn to sit with it. To observe, to listen, to unlearn. This isn't spiritual fluff, it's cognitive reality. Letting go is liberation. Not just for mystics, but for anyone with a mind. But here's the question. Is nirvana only for monks and sages? For those who can spend years in silence? The Buddha never promised ease, but he never excluded anyone. Nirvana, he said, isn't found in retreat, but in attention. It begins with awareness of how we cling, of how we avoid, of how we tell stories about who we are. And in that awareness, a choice arises: to hold tighter or to let go, to react or to release. Nirvana doesn't require abandoning the world. It requires meeting it without grasping, to love without possession, to feel without drowning, to live without illusion. It's not the end of caring. It's the beginning of unconditional peace. A peace that doesn't depend on anything changing. So, what is nirvana? It's not a reward. It's not a heaven. It's not a fantasy of bliss. It's the moment you stop needing things to be different in order to be okay. It's the quiet after the storm, the stillness beneath the noise, the windless flame. And in that stillness, you find what you were always chasing. Not happiness, not pleasure, not escape, but freedom. The Buddha and Socrates, though oceans apart, left us the same map. Turn inward, question deeply, let go. Because the peace you long for is already here, waiting beneath the ache. Hungry for more timeless answers? Explore the next episode in our series on the big questions.